right, so when we look at your study guide, keep in mind there's multiple things here that I put in that you could study. When you study, you should look over this lab sheet, look over your labs. You can either have someone quiz you or you can quiz yourself by covering up part of your study guide as you go. I've also made lots of Edpuzzles that when you go to edpuzzle.com, there's lots of Edpuzzles. I've cleaned out your Edpuzzle so that all that's in there are things that you can use to study. So you can use any of these. These can help you make sure that you're prepared for your test. Okay. Then if you go into BrainPop, there's also an additional video on tornadoes and one on hurricanes. So feel free to also watch those. It's up to you whether you want to take the quiz or not. I always think it's good practice, but you can decide. Okay, but you'll have to search it. I did not officially sign it. So let's go ahead and look at the study guide. For this to be the most effective for you, you should do each section at one time. You should not just kind of plow through the video. You should pause. You should be using your binder. So when you're looking at how to study for a test, you should have out your science binder, which should have your patterns and fronts, should have it's windy out here, it should be hurricane, your hurricane page, and your tornado page, as well as the weather map. The front of the weather map part is all possibly on the test. So let's look at what the first part of the test has. Each time I'm going to give you a sample, and then I'm going to want you to go ahead and I want you to pause the video, and I want you then to then try it yourself and then check your work using my video. Okay? So the first part is testing fronts. There are 4 main types of fronts. In the first column, I want you to draw a symbol. So, for example, when I think about a cold front symbol is a line, and it has triangles like, whoopsie, like that. And then because I'm using a marker, mine is blue, but I'm going to expect for you to write blue. Over here where it says drawing and description of a front, I want you to remember that in a cold front, cold air is cold air is stronger than the warm mass. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for in that box. I'm also looking for in this box a little drawing about the front. So I might draw in an air mass. It's a little hard to do on a smartboard, on a little video. And then I might draw the warm air smaller, and that warm air is coming there, but it also gets pushed up, creating lots of clouds. Over here, I want to know the weather that is associated with it. So I'm looking for both the temperature and I'm looking for the conditions. So in a cold front, I'd be looking at my and I would write stormy and colder temperatures. Or I could do stormy and temperatures with an arrow down. Either one is fine. Okay, go ahead and pause your video and fill out the rest of this using your patterns and fronts. When you're done, press play. I'm not writing in all of this. I'm just going to go over it kind of quickly with you. Okay, so make sure to pause and then press play. At this point, when I look at warm front, you should have had red semicircles. You should have said warm air is stronger than the cold air. And you should have said it was rainy, cloudy, and temperatures would rise or go up. It'd get warmer. Stationary front, remember that it has triangles on one side, semicircle on the other. Triangle, semicircle. That would be red and blue. The air masses are the same strength, and therefore I would have a cold and a warm meeting, but they kind of go back and forth. Temperatures are going to stay about the same, and when I'm looking at conditions, they're going to be rainy, not as stormy, and cloudy and foggy. The occluded front, remember this is the one that has all the triangles and the semicircles on the same side, going the same direction, and they're purple. You should have written here, I should have a cold front, a cold air mass, a warm air mass in the middle, and another cool air mass. Up here, you should have said two cool or cold air masses surround or are on both sides of the warm air mass. Over here, we would expect a little bit cooler temperatures and stormy, rainy conditions. Not super stormy, but it's going to be heavy rain. All right, for number 2, so make sure that you have that all filled in. There's a huge section on fronts. They might be maps. They might be like pictures of the fronts. Okay, but either way, I'm looking for you to show me that you understand the parts of the front. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you how I want you to do the next one. But remember, you should be doing this study guide before you check your answers. Okay, so on this one, I'm looking for blank pressure to blank pressure. And then below that, I'm looking blank temperatures to blank temperatures. Okay, so at this point, that's what yours should say. And now you should go ahead and I want you to pause the video. I want you to try this part and this part. Go. Okay, make sure to press play. All right, at this point you should have said high pressure to low pressure. High pressure, remember, it's an indirect relationship. So if you increase pressure, the temperature is decreased. So lower temperatures cause an increase in pressure. Higher temperatures cause a decrease in temperature. So you should have said high pressure to low pressure, low temperature to high pressure. Okay, try number 3. True or false, high pressure is associated with good weather. This is true, but because remember, weather always moves from high to low. And so as a result, the weather is always moving away from the high. It's moving towards the low conditions. So as a result, you're going to have good weather in the high and bad weather in the low. Okay, let's go ahead, turn the paper over. Try number 4, pause the video, and then press play. 4, true or false, weather maps are 100% accurate. You should have put false. The reason you should have put false is because we can never know with 100% certainty. They are not wild guesses. They are well thought out predictions, but the atmospheric conditions can always change. Okay, let's look at number 5. Label an updraft and a downdraft. So think about, where does an updraft and a downdraft occur? Are they on the outside or the inside of a tornado? If you said they're on the inside, you're correct. Remember with the tornado simulator, when we put our hand on the inside, we didn't put it on the outside. We felt the winds on the outside, but to stop the tornado, we put our hand right in the middle. So right here, you should draw 2 arrows, and you should label one updraft and one downdraft. Remember that draft is just like another word for wind. So it's like an upwind and a downwind. Okay, now over here it says describe how a tornado forms. Well, just like over here, we need a downdraft and we need an updraft. But that is not enough. We also need wind coming from all directions. Remember with the simulators, you have to have all 3 of those components, those parts. So think to yourself, where's the low pressure, where's the high pressure, and go ahead and label. Okay, so make sure you pause every time so that you're practicing what you've learned so you're ready for the test. Okay, at this point you should have labeled this updraft, this one should be downdraft, this one should be wind coming from other directions. You also should write in that this is high, this is high pressure, and the low pressure is on the center of the tornado. Where do most tornadoes in the United States form and why? Okay, go ahead, try that question. Unpause when you're ready. Okay, if you said Tornado Alley, you were correct. The reason that we have the conditions that we do in Tornado Alley is because remember that we get cold dry air from Canada meets warm, wet air from Gulf of Mexico. Okay, so where they meet is right in the center of the United States, where we have Tornado Alley. Okay, last question focuses on hurricanes. So I want you to sketch with me. I'm going to draw a circle in the middle, and then I'm going to make like a round that's more solid like that. And then I'm going to draw like a little swirly around it like this. Okay. Now I want you to try and label that. I want you to label this part, and then I want you to label this part here. Okay, using one's the eye wall, and there's the winds or rain bands around the eye wall. Okay, pause your video and try that one. Okay, if you said eye is in the center, you're correct. That's the very low pressure, very calm area. This part here is the eye wall, which is the roughest part of the hurricane. That's where all the winds are meeting as they're all moving towards that low pressure area. And these here are the rain bands, the wind bands, the bands of rain, or the bands of wind. So remember, when we look here, there's the center, the eye. This part here is the eye wall, and these are the rain bands, wind bands, or band of wind or band of rain. So you can kind of identify, and there's the low pressure there in the middle to make the eye. And the last but not least goes into the location of hurricanes. So try this question. If a hurricane were to hit the United States, would the hurricane more likely form in the Atlantic Ocean by Florida or the Pacific Ocean, and why? So remember, when we look at a map, Pacific Ocean is by California, Oregon, Washington, D.C. on the west side of the United States. Atlantic Ocean is on the east side by the North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia. That'd be the Atlantic. Okay, pause and write what you think. Okay, should be unpaused now. And if you were to say it would hit near the Atlantic Ocean, you are correct. And the reason for that is because the Atlantic Ocean near Florida is much warmer than the Pacific Ocean near, especially up by Oregon and Washington. The water has to hit about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so keep that in mind. That's pretty warm for the surface temperature to reach. So therefore, the Atlantic Ocean is going to be where hurricanes form. So at this point, you should be prepared with your study tool. Now remember, your study tool is not everything that's on the assessment. So you need to make sure to also look over your labs, read through them, watch the Ed puzzles that I provided for you, and watch the brain pops. Quiz yourself, make sure that you're ready so that you're ending solid with weather. Nice job watching this. Please make sure to study hard and be ready for the assessment.